What is up, you guys, and welcome back to episode 56 of the Lombard Trucking Show. I want to thank you all for joining me again today. I have with me an awesome guest. He's a gentleman who I met up in Des Moines, Iowa, some months ago. I don't even remember when it was, but I was getting in a workout at a Love's parking lot with the Bowflex weights out, and this gentleman approaches me because he seemed interested in what I had going on, and then we got to talking. We ended up hanging out the rest of the night. We exchanged phone numbers. We kept in contact ever since, and we've made plans to get him on the show because he's got a story worth telling. But without further delay, I'm going to let him tell that story. So I want to welcome Shannon Skippy Towell. Welcome to the show, man. Glad you're here.
Hey, I'm glad to be here, brother. How you doing, brother?
I can't complain. It's nice weather down here in Athens, Georgia. I can't. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not ready for summer yet. I've been acclimated to the cold, and I'm very used to it. I have all my jackets with me. I'm comfortable, and I'm not ready for the heat.
Oh, I'm kind of contrary. I love the heat, brother. And
Yeah, I'll get used to it. But
oh yeah.
um, so let's let the people know who's Shannon Towell. We're gonna get into so we'll figure out where Skippy came from soon. But yeah, man, what's your story?
All right, brother. Well, my story. Well, after I turned 18, I decided to enlist in the Marine Corps, and I was a 2311 ammo technician, and did my time in the Marine Corps. After that, ended up getting out with a medical discharge under honorable conditions. Ended up getting hurt, and God kind of threw me for a whirl a little bit, and I was sitting there trying to figure out after I was out, okay, what's my next game plan? What do I got planned? And so I did some thinking, and I was a janitor for a little while, and I was sitting there thinking, like, you know, I like the peace and quiet of the road, like just working by myself, and don't like being micromanaged. Just kind of like I can do the tasks on my own. And so I decided at that point, hey, I'm gonna go get my CDL and become a trucker. And I decided grabbed the book, study it, the whole nine, and I went to, I applied for CR England because they had a trucking school and that type of thing. And I was kind of going in this on a limb and, going on the web, searching, seeing what was there. And, um, I always had heard the rumor of don't work for Swift. I kind of chuckle at that a little bit, but it seemed all right. And after that, I decided to go ahead and embark on that endeavor and got my permit. I hopped on a bus from where I was living at the time in Alton, Illinois, up near St. Louis, and I took a bus all the way out to Utah. Did my trucking school up there for 2 weeks, and then they had me hop on a plane, fly out to California, and I spent about 5 weeks out there with a mentor and stuff like that, who I'm still friends with to this day. And then after that, I was pretty much just throwing the keys and figure it out yourself. And that's how a lot of the industry has gone for me when I first started. And after about 6 months of working Dollar General, running reefer trailers and manually unloading my trailers and delivering to stores and stuff, I decided I wanted to try something new. So I embarked on doing flatbed with Paul Transportation, based out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And, I enjoyed flatbed. I really did. It was some of the best times of my life. And um, so I decided, after working there for about a year, I was like, okay, I'm going to try something new. And so I had a buddy of mine tell me about a gentleman by the name of Victor, and he was based out of Rochester, New York. I was like, all right. So I bought a rental car. I drove all the way up there, got the truck. Everything seemed dandy until about 3 weeks in. And that was the roughest part, was realizing that I wasn't getting paid or being taken advantage of, and pretty much just getting starved out. And I had the mentality of fuck it, and I parked the truck back home where I was and told him to come get it. And unfortunately, um, I ended up filing a lawsuit against this individual, and He skipped town. And so the IRS decided to start claiming his assets and stuff like that because he left country because he was Ukrainian. And so, out of fright and fear in the back of my mind, and by this time I've already had about close to almost 2 years' experience, I went back to Paul for a little while. They took me back, and and I was still working for them. And I ended up applying for JB Hunt. And after that, things just really didn't work out with Paul and the home time, and so I left, and I've been working at JB Hunt here, new job for about a little under a month now, and I'm just loving every minute of it. Not stressed, getting paid, all the pluses, and that's kind of up to speed on where I'm at and what kind of got me in the industry, and where I'm at now, brother.
No, that's awesome. So where are you broadcasting from right now? You're in your truck just like me.
Yeah.
So where are you at?
I'm in Hazlet, Texas, right across the street from the BNSF rail yard here and close to Fort Worth, Dallas Fort Worth area, if y'all want a bigger name town.
Yeah, for the area. No, that's so awesome. So you got your CD. When? So what year is it you went to Sierra England? This is 2020. We're talking.
Yeah, we 2021. No, actually 2020. Yeah, you're right, 2020.
I'm not gonna lie. When you said you were a janitor, I think about being a janitor all the time because the janitor in our high school, he was like everyone loved him.
Yeah.
I think it's like I feel like being a high school janitor would be something I would like love to do in retirement. Like go to the basketball games, cheer on all the athletes, just be like this old like I envision being like this old wise mentor as this janitor. With this story of being a driver. I don't know. That's maybe I'm dreaming a little bit too much. But yeah, so you go to CR England. You're still friends with your mentor though. This is good. Now, when you were at CR England, I've heard a lot of guys will be with. It'll be one trainer and two guys in the truck. Was it just were you with a third person?
I was not, but my experience with CR England, I knew about a lot of guys that were going through that and they were going OTR, being put two, three people in a truck even with the mentor. But me, since I did dedicated Dollar General. It was just me and a trainer. That was the best thing that could ever happen. And my trainer happened to be a an alley dog or an alley jockey, whichever you want to call him. But he was that for 5 years before he even got in a truck. So he kind of knew the ins and outs of backing and stuff, and that really helped me a lot starting out.
I'm wondering who your mentor was. Was he, by any chance, was he Mexican?
Yes, yes, he was. His
I'm
name.
wondering.
Go
I
ahead.
forget this guy's name. I just know that I met a gentleman in Arizona. He was really nice. He was I assume he was Mexican because, like I said, I'm not a genius on which Hispanics or what. I mean, they seem to still fight amongst each other between Puerto
Yeah.
Ricans and what have you. But that's besides the point. But I remember meeting a guy who, when I was new, I was in Arizona. It was like my first load. He helped a CR England driver, helped me back into a spot at a Love's. Like he like got in there with me and coached me back because he saw me struggling. And I'm wondering if that's your guy. Now he had told me he had been with Sierra England for like 9 years or something at that point. So I'm not really too sure, but you got really lucky with your training at Sierra
Oh
England.
yeah.
And for the
He.
listeners, an alley dog is somebody who works at like a distribution center, and they basically just they're pulling trailers from door to door, backing them into spaces, the yard. So all they do, their whole job is backing up, essentially.
But yeah, his name's Carlos. I forget his last name, but I still keep in contact with him to this day. He works for Frito Lay now, running a day cab home every night for his kids and stuff. He lives out in California, and that in itself has been a struggle for him. Not only the money he's making, but it's just inflation has just hit so high up there or over there. Like, like eggs, he'll buy eggs by like a pack of 30 is like almost close to $1.75 an egg now. That's just how ridiculous the prices have gotten, brother.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's getting wild. I'm in a few Facebook groups, and I know that I see jobs posted for like driving jobs posted on the West Coast, like California, Northern California, and like at face value when you look at them, they're like and they're regional jobs, but really mainly, but they're hiring out of California, and it's like the money's really good up front, but at the end of the day, when you look at it, making 100,000 in California ain't shit.
No.
At least
And
at least right now, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's just. And you got a lot of people moving away. I mean, even from a business standpoint, as a business operator yourself, which is going to seem better, all the regulations and stuff that have been set and to pretty much just mess over small businesses, or are you going to stay through to go through that, or are you going to leave? And that's just the reality of it. That's why, here in Texas, a lot of businesses have moved here because of the scrutiny that's happening over in California. Also on the East Coast, from a business perspective, a lot of businesses are packing up and leaving.
Oh yeah, especially freight wise. I mean, I think California has a reckoning coming when it comes to yeah, a lot of the regulation, the rules they're trying to do. I mean, just from just from the emissions standpoint alone, I mean, there's so many trucks that don't run there that used to. I mean, it has to do with their prices. I mean, stuff coming out. What stinks is, I mean, they have some of the busiest ports out there, and they there's definitely a need for trucks, but eventually, like I said, I think California is like a knight dying in its armor, and I think they have a reckoning coming freight wise. But yeah, even East Coast wise, if you're a trucking company, I mean, fuel, especially when the fuel prices went up on the East Coast, even places with notoriously quote lower fuel like the Carolinas, um, even then, I mean, as a guy who's driving and just how the market's been, if you were out anywhere on the East Coast, it was also pretty bad. But that's a whole economic standpoint.
Yeah.
You did your time at CR England. Now this Victor guy. Let's go into this because I people have no idea. As I brought it up on the show before, the Eastern European mafia. These people. There's stuff in this industry that's going on, and it's actually has an effect. It actually has an effect on inflation, and this is what people don't get. So like when it comes to this guy like Victor, and you're going to go into it in a minute, but I just wanted to say this quick. Like so this there are a lot of carriers out there who take advantage of the system really easily. They skirt the regulations. They do this stuff. And in doing that, they have very improper hiring practices, and they're taking real hauling cheap freight, which drops rates down, which kills legal businesses. In a sense, is not doing anything for the country. And you came in contact with this guy, Victor. So a friend
Yeah.
referred you to this guy. Now, what is your friend's experience with this guy like?
Actually, it was actually the contrary. It was really good. He had a good time, everything else, but um, he was a very good friend and still is. He just, anyway, what happened with Victor was my friend kind of set me up with him, and I kind of met him and talked to him and stuff, and um, from right out of the gate when I decided to get my 2 weeks in at Paul, for the first time when I just said that, I'm gonna go seek other avenues, see what's out there, and I talked to my buddy, and I met Victor. First, it was through the phone. I kind of did some online research on his company. There wasn't anything out there, and I was already kind of skeptical as it was, and I should have listened to my gut, but I didn't. And I rented a rental car myself. I drove from Tulsa, Oklahoma, all the way to Rochester, New York on my own dime, which is kind of my screw up looking back. But
Yeah,
it,
that's red flag number one.
yeah, that was red flag number one for me. And red flag number one was the fact that this dumbass didn't even have a website, let alone any sort of feasible way to prove who he is.
Yeah, no
Eh,
Facebook page, no Instagram. Yeah.
nothing. There's just nothing serious about it. And, and sometimes I'm going to go on a little tangent here for a second, but sometimes you got individuals like this that will go right out like I kind of view them as like, you ever remember the old guy like in the 80s with like the trench coat, kind of like sitting behind a back alley, hey, you want to buy something, kid? That's kind of how this is. And they'll sit outside trucking schools and try to take prey on these younger guys who just don't know anything, and then get screwed over and then get pissed off and say, well, fuck this industry. That's just the reality of it. But so I ended up, things seemed going okay, going in, get up there, get my truck. My dog kind of got lost in the process, which that was already a stressful deal. But I was pulling freight, and like didn't even have a fuel card. He had us get a Chase bank account at Chase to where he could drop money into our account for fuel and stuff. And sometimes he wouldn't even pay that, and expecting us to pay his, um, like, because the reefer that I was running, I was up in Spokane, Washington. Coming back, I hit the reefer was acting up and stuff, and he was acting like wanting me to pay for working on his stuff, and I'm like, no, you got to pay me. You need to have things set up for this. And And what really was kind of the cherry on the cake with this individual, he forced us to run outlaw. I mean, against ELD regulations, they would purposely mess with our logs to reset our 14 hours and stuff when we didn't know it. I I'm willing to admit this, I drove from Spokane, Washington all the way to up past Ohio in 22 hours. And unfortunately, the I will not ever do that again because that was stupid, and that put my license in jeopardy. And you got other people out there that don't know any better, that especially when it comes to the hours of service regulations. And I'd been trucking only about a year and 6 months when I went through that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really want to stress to a new guy, if even if there's a new guy listening, like, double check yourself on whichever company you can. And there are ways to look up um, different companies and stuff like that. If you're on the phone with a company, just say, "Hey, could I get your DOT number? I want to do a little research." And so you could put in their DOT number on the FMCSA website and look up, the stuff like, how, is this company good about accidents? Is this company, it'll go over the lists, and you can usually read between the lines on that stuff. Like, well, if they're failing inspections, you can kind of read between the lines that, hey, they're not really mechanically working on their stuff. And, these are tools that us driver has, and I never really found out about it till I was talking with an owner op buddy of mine by the name of Reed. Um, he lives out of Colorado, but um, he told me about that. I'm like, man, I've been doing this 2 years, almost close to 2.5 years now, and I didn't know anything about it. And so I'm still learning things, and this is an ever learning industry, and especially with the incidents with Victor, I will do my damnedest to tell anybody about companies like this and stray them away. Any driver I can. I've already did
Yeah.
it to one.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that, about because I've never mentioned that on any of the episodes about looking that up, and so I'm really glad you're bringing it up now. And I've had a couple. I upload these podcasts to YouTube now, which I should have been doing from the beginning, but I've had, so there are always people interested in getting their CDL, and these videos have crossed paths with them, and there have been guys asking me questions about getting their CDL and stuff like that. And this is an important thing because you're absolutely right that there's a lot of these. And look, I hate to, it might sound racial. I don't really give a fuck, but a lot of these Eastern European guys and some of the Indian guys, and this isn't conspiracy. This is fact. They're doing this in Canada. They're doing it at the ports.
They're
They
doing it
are,
here.
yeah, they're doing it in the U.S. They're doing it around Chicago. This isn't like conspiracy or racism, but these immigrants will take advantage of new immigrants. They'll grab the new guys and force them into indentured servitude. But not just that, they're doing it to anybody else because once you walk out of that school with a CDL, all you are to them is meat in a seat. They're not going to pay you shit. They're just going to screw you over. They're just going to get as many loads as they can out of you until you get fed up and you leave. And like that, and then experience isn't worth shit. At that time, you're running a, like I said, nobody loves ELDs or the hours of service. But guess what? If you have an ELD, if you it's the owner of the MC, him, Victor, you get an hours violation, like it'll hit it as MC, but it's your CDL that's on the line. So I'm glad you brought that up, guys. And I'll say that again. You can go on the FMCSA website, look up a DOT number, and see what's going on with that company, how many trucks they have, what they've done. This happened recently with my friend Justin at Freight Waves. There was some douchebag on TikTok trying to pitch trucking. He's one of these scam artists, one of the course guys. He's selling courses on how to get into trucking, and he's preaching trucking as this like hustle. And in the video, he's got a gold money counter counting cash. He's like, "This is all legal money I make from trucking," which isn't reality. And Justin goes up and looks up his MC number. He's also got a brokerage, and this guy basically admitted on camera that he's double brokering, and he has all these hits on his MC that shows that he's a fraud. So I'm glad you brought that up with him. But
But
you got out of this situation. How'd you get out? Or no, I'm sorry. What you were gonna say something? Go on.
no, I was saying, like, but that is something that us drivers have tools to access. And they're allowed to look at your, when you apply for a trucking job, whether you've been a driver for a while or it's your first one. They're going to pull your driving record. Most companies give you drug tests nowadays and stuff like that. They're allowed to pull all this information on us to look us up and see what we've done. Why not we do the contrary and also look them up too? You see, it's kind of like we have the tool to do that both ways. You know, if the company maintains equipment, their DOT inspections are going to be passed. You know, if they're hiring good drivers, they're not going to have 247 accidents only for, like, let's say 500 trucks in 2 years. You know, I mean, it's just, it speaks for itself, and a person can use their mind to figure it out.
Yeah, just like in the civilian world, I say it because, and it's funny to call it the civilian world, but basically, if you're a non-truck driver, you're a four wheeler, you're a civilian. But like it's just, if you go into a job interview for any job, like outside of trucking, it's people say this a lot, but they're not interviewing you. You're also interviewing the company. I mean, you could walk into that interview and you're expecting this company to be like this, and then it ends up being something you don't want, and it's something that I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Drivers don't do it when it comes to looking at companies in this industry because, but for the most part, they're looking for, two things: more money or more home time. Like that's really all that's lasered in, and they don't know they could be walking through the door of some company that's got a CSA score that's going to have them sitting at scale houses or getting fucked with.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I can't stress enough, like, um, and not only that, just talking to somebody that works for the company, I mean, then, just kind of do your own little background check in theory about a company. You can usually read between the lines when it comes to certain stuff. And not only that, looking at online reviews of certain companies. I mean, everybody's got a reason why they say things. Sometimes you got them guys that just are pissed off at the world and just want to plaster some stupid crap. But if you could usually get some genuine reviews and reason behind it, and um, when it came with Victor, after I was pulling freight, it's been 3.5 weeks since I hadn't been paid. I'm sitting here fucking starving, literally, because he put me in that much of a hole. But I said, you know what? Screw it. I parked this truck. I went and got a lawyer, and I filed a lawsuit against him. And at that same time, when I filed a lawsuit against him, he skipped country. He's no longer here. But I guarantee you, you get some individuals that do that shit. You're gonna have a driver flip out on the fucking handle wherever it is, and unfortunately, bad things could happen to them, and that's just the reality of it.
Yeah,
And
drivers aren't always making the best of decisions, because they're not in the
yeah,
right
they're
state
not
of
in the right
mind.
mindset. No,
Mhm.
but
So Victor's definitely not in the U.S. anymore, and so his truck. Now you said you drove the truck back to where you lived.
yeah, I drove it back to where I lived and I sat on it, and
Yeah, you just
then
said it, and then who took it? What did some repo guy just come and
yeah,
take it?
yeah,
Yeah,
some repo guy took it, and that was the end of that. And by that time, I was already on the phone with Paul, flying back. And I flew back to Tulsa and got back to my normal job I was doing. And when JB Hunt kind of landed in my lap, I had a buddy of mine by the name who I went to trucking school with, Gregory Stevens. He um, my best friend, and not only that, like he's been working here at JB Hunt for about 2 years now as well. He's worked here ever since um, left Sierra England. He stayed at Sierra England only like 5 months, and yeah, and the thing is too, and one of these side notes I want to mention, about the trucking school thing. Um, if you leave within a certain amount of contracted period, they will mind rape you when it comes to um that it's pretty much like a student loan hanging over your head, and it could be upwards of $6,000 just out of the gate. I mean, they mark it up astronomically. I mean, maybe is that just how inflation was? Because back when I was looking to get my CDL, I could have went to White Line, which was a trucking school out of the state of Kansas. They only wanted $1,100, but it was a 30-day class.
yeah. Odds are, the CR England one, they definitely so because it's CR England school, right?
Yeah,
Like yeah, so that's the thing. They have their price tag on it, and what they actually do is they put interest on it, and that's
yeah,
why the number amount. Because yeah, when it came to Pam with me, now Pam doesn't have their own school, but what they do is they have contracts with schools. So I went to ATDS in Killeen, Texas, which is where Fort Hood is at,
yep,
and and I only did 9 months at Pam before I left, and I went over to R&R. And what's crazy is, yeah, the loan was for like The loan was from some like really like I've never heard of the place. It was from some place in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, because I remember seeing it. And Pam would make the minimum payment on it. The interest on the loan was like 16, like credit card type interest. It was
Hmm.
like really huge. So by the time I left, even after 9 months, the loan was barely a third paid off. But
Hmm.
I had saved up enough, and I had because I was considering paying for the school myself as well. So I had the money saved up, and I still owed like 4,000 on it, and I just
Hmm.
paid it off immediately. But yeah, some guys, you end up having to, yeah, if you don't pay it off right away, it's still accruing interest, or if you don't get on a payment plan. And that's how these. I'm glad you brought it up because this is how the CDL milling factory works. Because this is how these mega carriers keep guys. They keep them for a year, and I mean, shit. If you work for one of these mega carriers for a year, they have made that money back time and time again, hand over fist. Within the first month, you've already made CR England. You've already
Yeah.
made it worth it for them to send you to school.
And the real reason I left CR England was just it was lack of home time and stuff, and I requested time off, and dispatch really wanted to fuck with me, and I was like, you know what, I'm done with this, so I left. And then they put me at, because I took pictures of my truck, my logs, the whole nine, and I was smart about doing so. Because when I left, they put an abandonment like I abandoned a load on my record, and I actually had to dispute that, and that was a process that I had to go through with um oh crap, what the hell is it called? DAC, like DAC report, and I had to go through, show them pictures, show them I wasn't under a load, all that other stuff, and they forced CR England to change it.
Yeah, you're
But
not the first person I've heard say that too. Like I've talked to probably at least a dozen people at this point who have said, "Oh yeah, man, they tried to hit me with abandonment. They tried to say I abandoned the truck, and they drove it to a dealership. Like they're like, yeah, they tried to say I abandoned it, but I left it at a Peterbilt dealership that I had gotten it fixed at. Like
mhm,
and yeah, and they'll hit them with that.
yeah,
Yeah, that's what some of these companies try and do.
with me, because I ran pretty much regional, and that's pretty much what I still do. I ran over the road for when I did flatbed, but I'm back to doing regional here at JB Hunt. But when I was running with CR England, I was doing regional Dollar General there, and I parked the truck back at the yard exactly where I picked it up when I first day I got there, and they still marked me with it. And thankfully, I had a whole bunch of proof in that. And unfortunately, there's some drivers that don't have the tools to fight that. And with that being said, like whether it's being taking pictures, the best acronym is this CYA. You know what I mean? Cover your ass when it comes to stuff, and um, be smart. If you're gonna quit a company, kind of just make sure the truck's at least semi decent. Take pictures, prove it's there, and then you're good. That way, if they ever hit you with an abandonment, no, no, here it is at the yard.
Yeah,
You've got your proof.
yeah, keep the proof. Oh yeah, always take pictures. It's like if you're going to return a rental car, take the
Yeah,
picture. Yeah, if you're going to rent a car, yeah, make sure that you got the pictures, you got all that evidence, all that stuff. Yeah, people don't know that when it comes because these companies will do it and they'll do it even after you've left. They won't do it up front. You'll find out about it later when you
like
don't, when they keep when and they're going to try to screw you over in the end. Now you mentioned how you left Sierra England, you went to Victor, you got done with that. Here's one thing that's cool about the trucking industry that new drivers sometimes or new or not, like some people think this because especially if you've worked outside, you left Paul to go work with Victor, and then after Victor screwed you over, you were able to go back to Paul. And that's one thing about this industry that is good. Good, I say good, with quotes because it really depends. But if you leave on good terms with a company, um, it like trucking companies will like there are people who come and go as they please. I remember I met a TMC guy. He said he worked at TMC for 5 years. He ended up getting his own truck, tried it for did it for 2 years, ended up not being his cup of tea. He went back to TMC. Like that's the thing. There's no in the civilian world. You're not really going to get that too often. Normally, when you leave, places will say they're going to invite you back, but it's not really the biggest reality. Sometimes it
well,
happens. I'm sure there is, but you were able to go back to Paul.
yeah, but I gave my 2 week notice. I typed up a professional paper. It was kind of, having a professional appearance. I mean, and not only that, just depending always how you're holding yourself to. Like, even if the company's bullshit or the job is bullshit, it's still good to leave on good terms if you can. I understand the simple mentality of cussing out a dispatcher and walking out. I get that, but that shit follows you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it. I mean, um, but yeah, because I gave my 2 weeks, I had ATS up on the horn, when I was dealing with Victor's stuff, and that was kind of one of those things for me. Like, I don't know if I want to try a new company yet. I know Paul. I'm gonna go back to Paul, and so that was kind of a misjudgment on my part. I mean, uh, freight's been definitely slowing down quite a bit, especially here at JB Hunt. But even back then, freight was just more kind of dwindling down a little bit because it was nearing Christmas time and stuff like that. And uh,
Yeah. So the flatbed, yeah, winter time and flatbed is kind of a, yeah, it's a slower time period, especially with Paul. It's funny you
mhm.
say that about wanting to go to a new company, though. Yeah, because once you get used to a certain company, you know how. Because what's crazy, every company has their bullshit, and once you learn it, yeah, once you learn it and get through it, and you're able to work through it, you don't want to go through that again at another company.
Yeah,
At another company because you got to go. It's like, yeah, it's like another growing pain. It's not exciting
yeah.
because you know that it's going to come with bullshit. And it's like, well, I'm already dealing with this, and I know how to do. Yeah, it's like
It's
you know
like,
the
well,
bullshit you're dealing with.
for me, it was like I already dealt with Victor's bullshit, which is undoubtedly the worst thing I've honestly ever went through when it came to trucking, was dealing with an asshole like that. And the coward ran off, and I still got a lawsuit against him, and the IRS acquired all of his assets. And you know how long the government takes when it comes to getting stuff situated and stuff like that. I'm still keeping posted with my lawyer about it, but it was just one of those things that uh, he tried to verbal threats with me. Like the threats, oh, I'll get a lawyer too. When I hit him with a 50-page lawsuit, he booked off. You
Yeah,
know,
no, he's not going to do anything, and you'll
no,
probably end up getting money back from that. That I could see the IRS giving you a chunk from what they get from his assets, but yeah, it'll take like 5 years for them to do. It'll take like 5 years for them to do it, but eventually they'll figure it out.
oh yeah, and when I went back to Paul, I was working there for a little while, and I just got tired of the over the road mess. That was me. Because my mindset's kind of always been, why bother traveling all 48? I've traveled all 48 states except for two, and that is Florida and Maine. Those are the only two states I haven't been. Flatbed, and I've seen a lot of the country. Um, but from a company driver standpoint, why bother traveling all over the road when you can just travel to 4 or 5 states and make the same amount of money? That was
Yeah, I
kind of
think
my thought process behind it, but every driver's different.
yeah, trucking's not definitely a one size fits all. That I think that should be the career path for anybody who gets in the industry, depending on where your life is. Like I said,
Yeah,
on my on the episode before this with Quincy, he lives in his truck. That's what he wants to do. He's got a plan because he's going to stack up X amount of money, retire by a certain age. That works for some people, but I think that the great timeline of, or just the linear timeline of a trucking career, you should get that experience going OTR for about 2 years. You want, once you get 2 years OTR, you can do anything you want. 2 years OTR is basically the industry standard right then and there, because at that point, especially with a clean MVR, you can get any regional job, and the regional jobs are where it's at, out Sunday or Monday through Friday. And then from there, even if regional doesn't work out, you start to have kids. That's when you can get into the, once you have that 2+ years, you can get into those good locals, like especially if you're doing flatbed. Like I know I've met so many guys who move heavy equipment, and they're Monday through Friday, about 60 hours a week. It's not like these Coke and Pepsi home
yeah.
every nights where they run your whole 14. It gets a little bit better once you specialize and get that experience. And that's a good linear timeline. And yeah, where you're at now doing regional stuff with JB Hunt, you can't beat that. Now you said it's slow, and you bring something up because there's something I want to talk about with that. So you said JB Hunt's getting slow. What do you mean? So what's going on this end? Is the rail yard full? Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Okay, so you know about Chinese New Year and that type of stuff, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah. The Lunar
the
New
whole
Year.
it'll cut everything will just shut down in China.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. That
about
was recently. I forget when
March,
that was. February or something. Yeah,
something like that. But a lot of our imports come from China. Well, when that and China shuts down, we don't start seeing the effects till about March. And we're getting less freight coming in during that time, and then after about April, like the second, third week of April, then it starts picking back up again. But it's just kind of a slow season. But also at the same time, JB Hunt is one of the largest, if not the largest, mega carriers, and I mean in the world. JB Hunt has their own shipping like ships for shipping containers. Not only that, they have every single job from here to Timbuktu. They've got flatbedding, they've got dry van, reefer. I mean, it's just JB Hunt offers a lot. And the thing about JB Hunt, what really kind of interested me in them a little bit was not only the fact that they have really good benefits, things like that, but just how my experience has been. It's been bread and butter. I'm doing intermodal, so basically I'm picking up like rail shipping containers and stuff like that, taking them where they need to go, and picking up an empty, going to another place, picking up a loaded one, and heading back. I mean, it's just bread and butter for me. And I don't plan on trucking all my life, but I'm still in that stage where I'm trying to figure that out. Because obviously I want to own a house and things like that, and maybe eventually start my own business. But that's something I'm praying on and still trying to figure out. I've got the mindset for it, but it's just, I mean, I'm 23. I've got more priorities to focus on right now, so a company driver is my best bet. But again, just the things about JB Hunt here that I like, you never hear from dispatch if you're doing your job. It's kind of one of those things. They let you do your thing, they let you leave you alone. They assume you can do your job. They don't need to babysit you. And you make your money, you drops, hooks, and log everything. I mean, it's really simple.
Oh,
I go ahead.
no, I was going to say this is good because we I spent a lot of time on the show talking. We kind of talk, me and guests. We always talk shit about mega carriers. They actively play into the CDL milling factory, which affects training. But you and I talked about this offline over the phone. If it's
Hmm.
one thing that sets JB Hunt apart a bit is that their size has the jobs at JB, like there's people who've worked at JB Hunt who probably hate it, but
Hmm.
if you're mature and depending on the way you want to go, JB Hunt, I feel as though just from what you're telling me, I mean they have something to offer. They're like,
They Yeah, they do. I'm not trying to talk over you. I'm sorry, brother.
no,
Um,
I'm talking over you. I should let you rip.
no, you're good, man. So JB Hunt, about back in like the 2000s, 2005s, they were just the worst company to work for. And here to about 5 years ago, JB Hunt went through like the shareholders and everything. They fired a lot of executives up. We're talking up top because a lot of problems that was being going on and how much turnover there was. And so they cleaned house, cleaned all of it out, got new people in there, and they pretty much restructured the company. And a lot of companies, even like yours, your company will go through a learning process too, trying to figure stuff out once it grows. This is kind of the same way as JB Hunt. They don't just hire somebody with a CDL. You actually have to have at least a year's experience to even get on here.
Yeah, they've changed the requirements, right? Yeah, I think
Yeah,
they used to have new drivers. I don't think they do that anymore.
nope, they do not. And, that's how a lot of companies are reshaping because, I'm going to talk about this in my podcast too. The way, they'll throw you to the wolves. I mean, a lot of trucking companies will, like, here you go, here's the keys, don't kill anybody. That's pretty much it.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
that was Pam, man. First load, they're like, "Hey, this is going to Montebello, California. See you."
have fun.
And I
Yeah.
was like,
Well, for me, I'm not perfect. I've had a few accidents. Everything's been minor. But one of my first accidents, I've had three total out of my entire 2.5 years of doing it. They've all been related to backing and all have been very inexpensive. But, I mean, we're not all going to get it down pat. Some guys, which is very rare, but some guys will go their whole record without hitting shit, which is crazy.
"No,"
But
but
that
yours
isn't
were just
everybody.
backing. You said
Yeah.
yours were just backing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've never gotten any tickets. You're not. So
No.
yeah, just for anybody listening, like this stuff happens, and it's never happened to me, but like tapping a trailer, tapping a guardrail in a yard, like it always happens to people. Anybody who says that I mean, I know I said I haven't happened. I've tapped a few like yellow poles, but just
Yeah.
like tap them and there's no damage. I've never had any like big infractions. But for guys
Well,
out there listening, like yeah,
mhm.
people get discouraged by it. You never had any major accidents like on the road, no
No,
DOT
no.
problems.
Well, And it's funny you bring that up. I'm going to go on a side tangent here about Paul for a second. This happened when I was running a dedicated fleet for out of Paul. We had a guy not even have a CDL 6 months on his phone while driving. Literally, he sideswipes a DOT officer's truck and admitted to him that he was on the phone. And I'm just like, well, they just want your license, they want your livelihood, they want everything. Good luck driving again, if at all.
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
just,
what. Yeah, you don't have to dime. Yeah, made the cop's job real easy though. Yeah, give yourself up.
well, and it's just funny I bring that up because, you know, you think common sense would be less common, but unfortunately, they're just. I remember we've had this conversation off the phone too, where like back in the day, like the 70s, 80s, even the 60s, truck driving took a long time to learn. You would be out, trying to learn stuff for months before you even got to drive on your own. Now it's just what, 7 weeks and then you're driving. That's
Yeah,
it.
you can be. Yeah, you
That's
can
even less sometimes.
even less if you go to a 4 week. Yeah, you go to a CDL school for 4 weeks, and essentially for you're only driving or backing for 3 of those weeks, and then you can go with a company. I was with a trainer with Pam for 14 days, and then yeah, boom, I was by myself. Like, granted, I'm a one off, and Gord, if you're listening to this, I technically had experience. Like, I drove big trucks in the military. I also got my CDL at 30, not at 18, like the government's trying to do now. At 18, driving, especially living on the road. I don't know if that's something I can do. The training is definitely, yeah, with guys now, it's crazy to think about.
It's like they're trying to put like rubbing alcohol on a gunshot wound.
Yeah,
Having 18-year-olds drive, you know, interstate, it's always been a thing, like in state. But having them drive across country and stuff, no. I mean, that's just something I'm pretty strict on because just my philosophy, you got some kids that don't even get their license till they're 16, 17. I mean, I was fortunate enough to get my license at 15 and I traveled. My dad was the type, he kind of, when I first got my driver's license, he threw me the keys, pack a bag, we're going to Yellowstone, and you're driving. So I learned to drive pretty quick when I was looking over the sides of mountains and stuff. But, and I've always learned better under pressure. I mean, especially with the Marines and stuff. But even when I got my CDL, 3 days after I got my CDL, like that I got with my trainer, we're going to LA, and I got to surpass LA traffic in a big rig with a 53-foot trailer on my third day.
yeah. No,
And
trial by fire is a great way to learn. Yeah, but yeah, with 18-year-olds doing it, especially
no,
new immigrants. Yeah, new immigrants. I-70 in Colorado in December. Haven't been have the license that long, but yeah, no, I like it. I love that. Yeah, that first trip you took, mine too, Montebello, Southern California, and
yeah,
I've been to LA. I've never driven a tractor trailer down there. That's tough.
it's really tough. I mean, and even when I was with Paul, I took my flatbed. I picked up a generator out in the Bronx in New York City.
Oh, dude, that's yeah. I couldn't
I
imagine
won't.
going.
I will not ever do anything like that again because that was so
Yeah.
much of a headache.
I just
You
don't know where
know,
guys. I just don't know where guys park. I worked a bit at my
right.
last job before I got into trucking. I worked down in Hunts Point Market in the Bronx, and like that's a huge produce, a huge produce place. And I'm like, where? I don't know where those trucks park. I mean, they must just ride dirty.
I mean, if I'm going to be real with you, what I did was I parked over in Jersey, and when I started my clock that day, I don't. And there's also another argument with this, but when I started my clock that day, besides the tolls that were ridiculously high over there, and I'll get into that in a second, but when I crossed over the bridge and saw, where I was going and stuff, that took over just about 11 hours just to deal with all that of on duty time.
Oh,
And
it's
by
a
the
full
time
day.
I'm, yeah, and even when I'm leaving, it's still taking you a while because of all the cars. The streets aren't designed for the traffic of an 18 wheeler. It's all close niched. And I mean, I'll be honest, it's like, and maybe this is something of my philosophy and I'm thinking of, but I mean, it really, I might go drive dirty if I was ever in that situation again. I am getting out of New York, and that's my ticket and my reward. But I, I, I mean, I don't get how some of these guys do it. You know what I mean? Like with bad rate, even if you're an owner operator, like running out of New York and places like that. Yeah, they might pay going in there, but good luck finding something coming out
Yeah,
that's
it's
actually decent.
super tough getting out. And yeah, those tolls I had to pay. Yeah, George Washington Bridge was fucking $98 when I had to cross it once. Yeah, because I picked up something right next to LaGuardia
Hmm.
Airport, and yeah, I ended up having to pay that bridge. So, but let's finish on JB Hunt. So what you said, dispatch leaves you alone. Like I said, I like to when people highlight the good parts of their companies. So JB Hunt, so like what's a day in the life like? What's your week like? You said they leave you alone. What's it like running intermodal, doing the regional gig? Like,
Oh, dude, it's literally running for JB Hunt on an intermodal fleet is literally the bread and butter or the bread and butter of the JB Hunt. Like
oh
it's the
yeah,
best thing you could do.
their containers
Um,
are on every train. And if you pass a train, it's got hundreds of JB Hunt containers.
well, the one thing I'll say, like I actually get 2 days off. My days off are Sunday, which is today and Monday. I'm currently one of those drivers right now who is just racking away money, saving up, and I'm going to be buying some land and starting my own ranch eventually. That's why I'm in my truck now. But I start my workday Tuesday. I set like, and the thing is, we do everything from our phone. And what I mean by that is JB Hunt pays us a stipend to use an app that they provide for us on our phone. They pretty much pay for our phone bill, which is awesome in itself. And not only that, you'll get your load on there. You set your driver ready time, which is called a DRT, for whatever time you're going to show up. That for that first day. I'm usually rolling by 6:06. I'm usually get here by 5, but I'm always rolling and ready to go. And you work throughout your week. You get anywhere from, on a bad week, 1,800 miles to a really good week, about 3,000.
Yeah,
So
yeah, regional's tough. Yeah,
I mean, you really can keep, I mean, it's just, and they don't force you to, they're just not forced dispatch here. That's another thing I like about it. And dispatch leaves you alone. And what I mean by that is they're not calling you, micromanaging you, telling you, you got to do this, you got to do that. No, you don't hear from them, which can be a good thing. If you hear from them, it's kind of one of them things like, hey, you're screwing up pretty bad if they're calling you, because
yeah,
they leave you alone. If you're running your miles, doing your thing, they're not going to get on to you about, let's say, if you're feeling a little fatigued in that afternoon, you pull off and stop to take a 30-minute nap, they're not going to bitch at you. It's kind of one of them things that, you know, they're here actually for the driver. And the benefits that JB Hunt offers is extremely good too, like healthcare, 401k, that is really good. Dental, vision, whole nine. But JB Hunt has the manpower to offer benefits like that and not cost an arm and a leg either. And another thing I'll mention is what JB Hunt really does a lot with vets too, like veterans. To any veteran listening out there, that's a driver, they will give you like an extra 3 cents a mile just for being a veteran here. Like, I'm glad there's like some recognition for that, which is kind of one of the reasons I kind of came here too. But you know, I guess the main highlights of this is um, the trucks are pretty good too. I mean, they're Freightliners. I'm in an international. I'm one of the weird ones. I'm in a coffin sleeper, so I kind of joke about that. But um, no, I mean, just JB Hunt has really changed my aspect of look on the mega carrier industry I mean, it's kind of changed it a lot because I started out with CR England, CDL Milling Factory, bullshit company that literally didn't give a fuck about the drivers, to Paul, which was a considerably smaller one that never really got me home or anything like that, to, I mean, also working for Victor, which that was its own fucking nightmare, to now JB Hunt and how it's everything that fits me. Weight off my back, man. I ain't got
no,
no stress at all anymore. And that's one of the things I could say, it's going to take you a little while to find that niche with you in a company. I mean, every company is going to have its bullshit, but it's just which bullshit are you willing to deal with?
yeah.
And that's really it.
No, I'm glad you say that because that's what people the turnover, the turnover in the industry is really high, and there's a lot of reasons like the parking, like the training and stuff like that. But some of the turnover definitely relies on the driver itself. This industry is not like any other job. Like if you have a bad experience, like there's you can go through these bad experience after bad experience. You can go from CR England, to Paul, to not getting the home time you wanted a company. You really do need to get out. Like if you want to stay in trucking, like that's the thing. If you don't want to do it, if you're here if you're only in trucking because it was like you were avoiding something else, then they're obviously not going to stay. But when you search and you find that that like that thing, it'll take a while, and sometimes it will end like I mean, there's guys on TikTok I see all the time, older guys too. Like there's this guy Bear, the voice. He's got this really serious voice. He makes good videos. He's a company driver for like a company called Peterson Transport in Manson, Iowa, and he talks them up all the time. Like it takes a while to find those companies, but then other guys they'll say like Crete is another one. They're a huge
Oh yeah.
carrier. Yeah, Crete's with Schaefer, and I've never met a Crete driver. They're a mega carrier by any means, but they're probably and drivers are probably more or less a number, but they're off your back. You have a little bit more autonomy. Like that's the thing is there are companies out there, big ones, who do put the autonomy on the driver, and that's really what most drivers want.
Well, yeah, and another thing I'll mention too, because it really changed my aspect starting here with JB when I did. It finally made me realize that hey, not all mega carriers are bullshit. Some mega carriers actually try. I mean, but then again, it's just because the company's so big, you might get on a shitty fleet somewhere, and then you might have to transfer and find a good fleet. This fleet here last year for JB Hunt had the lowest turnover in the entire company of JB Hunt.
Yeah, and
This
that's and
fleet
that
here that I'm on.
and that yeah, and that says something. And I think it's companies are starting to realize, and I talked about this with Rachel Premack from Freight Waves. Turnover has a huge cost. Like the cost of firing, hiring, rehiring, people quitting eventually catches up. And it's like so, and it seems as though JB Hunt knew, hey, like JB Hunt was probably okay with their turnover at one point, and then eventually they hit a wall, and then like you said, they cleared house and they turned over. But no, that's good. You're on JB Hunt. Let's talk. So your nickname Skippy. Let's go. Like you mentioned your podcast. So let's go. Where did the nickname come from, and then yeah, what pushed you to start making your own content?
Well, okay, so Skippy's my CB handle. I actually earned it, back before I met you and when I was started at Paul, and I was still out of the Marine Corps a little bit, and I was just still fucking hammering it, lifting weights, being that guy. And I'm sitting here at the yard during training. I crack open a jar of Skippy peanut butter. I take a spoonful of it and put it in my mouth. It was the non-sugar kind, and I was just doing it for protein so my muscles wouldn't be sore. Skippy, and yeah, so I got named after peanut butter. That was kind of the CB joke, and ever since I've been nicknamed Skippy, and that's in when I met you up in Des Moines, Iowa, at the Loves where you were working out and stuff like that. Just not only how you held yourself as a truck driver, I've never seen that in a driver before, and that's really was like, dude, what's up with this guy? So I pick up my dog, I kind of walk over there, and I start talking to you and stuff, um, and honestly, it motivated me because one thing was for sure was the health aspect. As us drivers, we feel like we're forced to commit to the norms, forced to eat the fast food junk, forced to just that this is how it is. No, it's not. And the all reality is, if you want to be healthy, you want to feel better about yourself, whether it's just going for a walk for about 45 minutes to, like you've always told me, drinking diet soda. That's
Yeah,
kind
man.
of what I've been doing.
Go to
But,
diet. Switch from regular to diet. It'll change your life. Like, people got no
oh,
idea. It's the calories.
oh,
We could talk about the sweeteners all day, and some people get up in arms, but at the end, it's calories in versus out, and you just
yeah.
switch diet, man. It changes the whole world.
But, that time when I met you and stuff, it really, when we swapped numbers and kept in contact, I started looking at your stuff, and and after talking with you for a long time, it really started clicking, and that kind of motivated me to be like, hey, what's out here for young drivers like me? Because I'm gonna be 24 here in a couple months, but what is out there for young guys like us that that first started with the trucking company, that don't know, that feel like the whole freaking world's on their shoulder, and then they're stressed, and they're freaking out because they don't know how to back, and just little stuff like that, to personal hobbies and stuff. That's why I kind of decided to start my podcast. I'm currently in the process of re-editing episode one, and I've been talking about doing this podcast for a while, and it's something that I'm going to be starting to publish more episodes out. It is called the Skippy's Trucking Show. Skippy's Trucking Show. It's on Spotify. And yeah, I've just started to kind of work my way into it, talk about, issues of the trucking industry as well, but also talking to other people in different places and just talking about different topics that a driver might think about, or even just, personal hobbies I like, or just, just something out there for the new guys, because it can be overwhelming. And even to somebody who doesn't know anything about our industry, that's one of the things that I want to start, discussing on a long-term scale, like what, like different facts and stuff like that, just to kind of get that information out there in a simple format, and even get people like how you invited me on your podcast, and kind of invite other people on mine too, just to kind of, we all come from different walks of life. We all have different stories on how we decided to do this, and not only that, some people that don't know what our industry is about,
Yeah.
and breaking that down for them and helping them understand to where a pet rock could understand it, as I like to kid.
No, that's it's awesome, and I think it's great that you are like you making content is a good thing, and it's actually it's kind of needed. I watched this video the other day, and a guy was giving a speech. I don't know if it was a TED talk or something, but he was talking about he was basically kind of giving a speech on how it's important that if you do want to make content, you should make it. But not only, but even if you don't, because if you look like, what would you give? In like in this, you don't have to answer this as rhetorical, but like, what would you give to just be able to peek into the life of one of your relatives from 100, 150, 200 years ago? Like, when you put this content down, like you have to think like your great grandchild is going to be able to have access to this and just see the stuff on there like, oh my god, that's where I get this from, this is why I act, this is why I'm just like this relative. And it's like, whether you're interested in it or not, because I would do anything to get the drone footage over Waterbury, Connecticut, and watching John and Nick Lombard start Lombard trucking back in the 1910s and 20s. Like, I would do anything for that, just to see what they were going through, just to see it. And so
Yeah.
for and like for your content, the stuff you're making, doesn't matter. Like, some people just don't think that, like, oh, it's not worth it, or they have imposter syndrome. Like, who really cares about what I have to do? But no, like, you're a younger guy. One, because put it this way, I know at just knowing who I was at 23, I would listen to what you're saying as a new drive, like especially if I'm interested in it. You're exactly who I want to listen to. I mean, I listened to most of the content I probably absorbed was from people younger than me when I got my CDL. Like, this stuff is needed out there because, like you said, the Victor stuff. Nobody, I have a lot of listeners who are non-drivers, up in the Northeast. They got no fucking idea about this stuff. And if
No.
people heard about the Victor stuff, if people knew, like, it would be front page news. We need to keep the discussion needs to keep happening, and not just from me and on this show, but other people need to be making some of their own videos, some of their, like,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
very
And
well needed. So I'm glad you got motivated to make your own shit.
oh yeah. And not only that, just being in better health too, man. Just seeing, not only for myself, but just making sure other people my age are not falling trap to the, you know, uh, getting bigger, and not only that, just being unhealthy. Just the health aspect in itself, and really, you kind of opened my eyes to that and kind of re-kicked that, because after the Marine Corps, I was kind of like, well, why do I need to be in shape? Well, you know, in reality, the thing is, we all always need to be in shape, because it can make us live longer, especially with how younger that, once we retire, and how much of a young age we actually end up passing away doing this job if we're
Yeah,
unhealthy, and doing the negatives. And I listened to one of your podcasts a couple weeks back where you talked about the statistics when it came to smokers, to not having medical insurance. I can't remember her name, but you had on, but I
yeah,
remember listening to
Candace.
that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Candace and I had talked over a lot of the stats out there where, yeah, smoking, diabetes, all of the bad stuff and the chronic illnesses and unhealth, like, it's almost doubled to truckers what it is for regular, like, civilians. It's not.
and and so, that's what kind of motivated me. Like, you know what, you know, Mr. Lombard, you're always out, with the brand Lombard Trucking, and always motivating people, doing them TikToks, weightlifting, and the whole nine, and getting after it. And so we need more drivers, you know, I, like that are actually out there, being in shape, being healthy, trying to motivate other drivers that just aren't there, or they lack the motivation. And not only that, having a little friend just out on the road and stuff. You
I
know,
was gonna say,
to
I was gonna say, bring in your guest, man.
yeah,
Yeah,
this is Olaf.
yeah.
This is
You
Mr.
mentioned the dog
Olaf.
earlier. I was gonna say you
Yeah,
definitely got to show the people.
yeah, this is my toy poodle. This is as big as he gets, and and it's good to have companies that let you allow to have pets or dogs or just any form of pet really within reason. But some companies don't offer it. But he's my bread and butter too. He really helps. But and especially with the mental toll that some of us can have as drivers. When we're sitting in that truck all alone, miles and miles away from family, it can really screw with your head a little bit.
No,
And so,
people don't know that emotional cost. Like I've had so many people message me, or a couple. It's especially a gentleman recently. I mean, he mentioned seeing my stuff on Instagram. He's like, dude, I want to ride with you and stuff like that. And sometimes I feel like maybe I'm glamming it up a little bit, where maybe I'm making it look too easy. But you bring up a good point about the health and wellness because it trickles down into mental health. But even when it does come to the physical fitness part, like if it is very important. The people retire at 64, truckers average, life expectancy 61. And if these companies cared about the health and wellness of drivers, then they would care. Then that you would see it out there over the road, but it's not there. And so
it's
that's
not.
why me as a business, me as a company, I'm gonna make it important. But I also like that you brought like with the mental health thing because it's something that I'm just like with the physical health stuff. People, you can only the whole you can only lead a camel to water or what have you. Like people can see what I'm doing the fitness wise, but if they're not in the right headspace to do that stuff, they're not going to. And yeah, and having something like Olaf along with you is going to
Yeah.
help. Be like there's things that you need to do as like because a lot of drivers there's you need to do stuff for your mental state when you're over the road if you're going to do this job, or it will eat you alive.
Well, not only that, like the thing with me having Olaf, it gives me something to do as an excuse to get up and go walk and go do something. It keeps you active.
Yeah,
If I ever stop at a truck stop with an empty open field, I'll take him for a run and we'll go run for a little bit. He's got that pent up energy and he needs to work out same as me. So I'm out there running with him
yeah,
and
that's
making
that's
sure
the
he's
main thing.
and the thing is um, whether it's running with just the basic exercise and stuff, I want to get that message out there as well, same as you do, about physical fitness in this industry, man. And, there are a lot of other drivers like you and me right now out there that, thinking there needs to be a change. There needs to be a good change to where drivers aren't as stressed anymore because this is a very stressful occupation, like we've talked about, and uh, to having better, healthier options to whether it's having home cooked meals. We need to bring a lot of that stuff back, but the only reason we haven't is a lot of these truck stops have put in a fucking McDonald's and just or like a Hardee's or something like that, or even at the TAs, some of them will do like the iron skillet, but really that some of that food don't even taste that good, man. Like that ain't
Yeah,
home cooking. That's just getting it out of a box.
yeah.
Like we're talking authentic food. Like go into, I don't know if you've ever been to Hood's truck stop up in up north of Joplin, Missouri, up off of 61 or
Oh yeah.
exit 61, up off of 44. That's a home cooking truck stop.
Hmm.
And so you get like fried okra. They hand bread their chicken. The place is phenomenal. So if any drivers listening to this right now, it's up off of exit 61. It's called Hood's Truck Stop, right in between Joplin and Springfield.
Dropland in Springfield. I was gonna say I know exactly where Hoods is at. Oasis
Yeah.
Travel Plaza is another favorite of mine. They got a good diner too. 44. Yeah,
But
those local ones. Hoods is like a local one.
but yeah, and not only that, they're a Christian run truck stop too. But the thing I can talk about is this: we need to start. Us drivers need to start supporting those little guys, or finding and letting other drivers know about it. That way, the bigger guys can see what's going on. But the only reason the bigger guys keep like charging $27 for a fucking shower at some truck stops because it's price gouging. That they take advantage of that, and really a lot of these companies, whether it's the trucking companies or just loves and stuff in general, you got people that work for them that have a good mindset. But unfortunately, the ultra mind of greed has kind of corrupted that in a little bit as much as it could. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like when it. charging 27 bucks a shower back. Like hell, I'd be fine paying with 10 bucks, just water.
Yeah, the shower's already paid for. Yeah, I could never, even if I worked at a Pilot or a Love's or something, if a driver ever like came up and was like, "Can I pay for a shower?" I would just give it to him for free. I
I
mean,
mean,
Pilot,
yeah.
yeah, Pilot's got the money, but you're absolutely right. If anything's gonna change in this industry, it's got to come back to the drivers. Like the unity is only gonna come by continuing to talk about it and leading by example. Like leading by example is the biggest thing. Is getting out there, making the content, putting it out there, making it like the only way to do it is to lead by example, and,
And
and showing what you're
sorry.
eating. Yeah, showing what you're eating. Yeah, bucking this. That's the only way to do it is to do the work. You have to do the work if we want any sort of change.
Oh hell yeah, man! And not only that, another thing I like to talk about is, driver finances and stuff too. Some drivers have trouble managing their own money and stuff like that. I'm also gonna end up doing an episode on that on my
I'd say that's
podcast here.
a silent killer. I'd call the financial aspect. Not only obviously is the food and the sitting all the time, the non-activity and all the other. I'd say the silent killer for a lot of guys is the financial aspect. Is the aspect of thing because a lot of guys aren't good with money.
No, they're not, and they think once it hits their bank account, they can blow it, or like fuck, even like how much money eating out will cost you versus going and shopping at Walmart and getting some food and stuff. It's going to save you more money in the long run. A lot of drivers don't realize that. You could easily spend $400 to $600 a week just eating out. Easy.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that could be. Especially if you're a new driver. I mean, that's kind of half your weekly check right there. Just
Yeah.
from eating food like that. Because the what people don't know is truck stops are kind of like airports a little bit, where like, the price, even the price of shampoo, like a smaller, an average bottle of Head and Shoulders is like $10. It's $3.99 at a fucking at a store like yeah, it's like airport prices for
Yeah.
even food. It's wild.
Yeah, like even like just sucking down soda pop. Like I've seen some soda pops like they'll have two 12-ounce bottles for $5.99. Like that's not a deal when you can go buy a 12 pack of it at Walmart for 4 or 5.
Yeah,
But it's just, some drivers, if they're over the road, they take a risk at parking in a Walmart. I read an article on this down in Georgia. They parked at a Walmart, went inside the shop, and then they got fucking towed.
yeah,
It's just
guys will get booted and towed like that a lot.
Yeah, and so it's just you got to be smart and accordingly when you make your decisions. Whether it's stop in a big city uh like Houston, for example. Like there's a Love's truck stop I'd always stop at in Pasadena. I'd get out, park up for a little bit. I'll go pay for an Uber, go to the store, come back. That's what I would do. But it's making sure you can hit those high profile areas where you're gonna have Uber and stuff like that to go shopping, and the time to do it. You know, because it's really going to save a lot of money in the long run
Yeah,
doing that. And not only that, just making sure you're a good steward with your money, being frugal. And some people have struggled with that. You know, and I agree with your statement, finances being the killer. Like I heard a JB Hunt driver earlier who was like, man, I'm always broke. But, I was hearing a couple guys say, well, how many miles you running? About 1,000 a week. I'm like, dude, I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. I'm like, dude, you are given the tools to run. You are a driver. You are not going to make anything unless you drive.
yeah, you got to work.
you
Yeah,
know,
I understand. Work life balance is great and stuff like that, but like you like I said, you got weekends, Sunday and Monday off. That's a solid schedule. I mean,
yeah.
yes, Saturday's your Friday, but guess what?
hmm
You got to work those days. Like, yeah, if you're gonna drive, if you're gonna be a driver, you got to like.
You got to
Do I
drive
think
or you
that?
got to
Yeah.
work.
Do
And
I
that's
think
with
the guy should?
anybody.
Yeah, you shouldn't break. You shouldn't have to break your back and work more than fucking 60, 70 hours a week. But you also, if you're driving 1,000 miles a week, man, that's yeah.
You,
He
like,
got he's got nothing to complain about.
well, not only that, how many truck stops are you stopping at on your way to your runs? It's just
Yeah.
stuff like that.
For
I would say on a good solid week for a regional guy here, you're going to average about 22 to 2,500 miles.
yeah, and that
I
yeah,
mean
and that's
that's pretty solid. And that's pretty average across the board. I mean, we're governed at 65, but like you're in an ungoverned truck, but you keep it at 68,
yeah. I don't.
and so
No point.
go ahead. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no
no, I'm
point in
saying there's
burning
no
extra
point
fuel.
going that fast. Yeah,
But it's one of those things. You can obviously calculate the mileage in your head, knowing how far you're going to get, stuff like that, managing your clock. And one of the things I want to mention real quick is our driver clock. If I guess I had to complain about anything as a driver, I would say, because anybody that doesn't know about the ELD or anything like that that's listening, we go off based of a 11-hour drive time, a 14-hour work day, and a 70-hour work week. That's what we can drive. We can drive 8 hours before we take a break out of those 11. And I've heard the argument with this a lot, and I've talked with Mr. Michael about this quite a bit, is extending our 14-hour clock out to 18 hours has kind of been, something I've really thought about. It would help drivers not be in a rush, still being in under their 11 hours, but, um, extending your 14-hour workday to 18 just to help if you're at a shipper or get held up or something like that. That's I guess it's the only negative I would say at this point in time in where I'm at in the industry as a company guy, and not only that, like just some of them companies out there that just look for a meat hacker to fill the seat. We're people the same as you if you think about it, and I feel like some companies just a majority of companies look at dollars and pennies.
No, they
Like we're
do.
just
Yeah, they do. These companies definitely look at drivers. They want drivers to be. They want the robots really bad. They want them, but guess what? They're not here yet. They're not coming for a while, and until then, they should. The drivers should be treated as such. Human beings. But yeah,
yeah,
I like that. I like that thought though on the ELD. I think extending that for the 14-hour, being able to either stop the 14-hour clock or extending it wouldn't be a bad idea for guys. It's just because of some of the, because like there could be times where you're at a shipper for 4 or 5 hours. That shouldn't dig into your work day because it affects your paycheck. Like at the
well,
end,
not
like
only that. Oh, sorry, brother. Go on.
no, I'm just saying when it affects you when things outside of your control are now affecting your paycheck, that's a problem. Like you should like that guy who drives 1,000 miles a week. He can control every bit of that. He's broke
Yeah,
for a reason. But if you're continuously going, and this is especially true on the owner operator side and company driver side, if you're spending X amount of time at shippers and receivers, and it's going into your pay, because I've missed out on loads because I was sitting at receivers when I could have gotten a really good reload 100 miles away, but I couldn't make that pickup time because I was stuck at a receiver. When that's happening, there's a fucking problem.
yeah, for sure. But JB Hunt has different measures for that. Like, let's say if I go up to a shipper and I show up there to get something live loaded, if I'm there over an hour, I get paid 27 bucks an hour detention just to sit there, which the hourly rate goes. And that's why, usually we get in and out quicker because companies don't like paying that detention.
Yeah, and JB
But so,
Hunt's probably got contracts with some of those customers too, where J because I think Coke and Pepsi have that, or Dr Pepper. I went to a Dr Pepper place where like yeah they basically have priority wherever they go because if they're at a place longer than X amount of time, they bill and invoice the receiver of where they're at. This is what that's what I've been told, what I've heard.
yeah. Well, and so, usually I'm not sitting, but I've also sat before, not with JB, but like with Paul. When I'm working with them, I never got paid detention at all, which is honestly criminal. But I sat for 5.5 hours just to get unloaded, and that's flatbed. And
Yeah, that's
for all you
very rare.
all you flatbedders out there that or non-flatbedders, that's not normal.
Yeah,
Like
flatbed. Yeah, in and out.
you whip in, take off your straps, 30 minutes, you're unloaded and out the fucking door. Like that's
Yeah,
how flatbed is.
it's up
You
to you
know,
how fast you're out of there when you're doing flatbed. Like you can be out of
yeah.
there. It all depends on how one you use you to secure and unsecure. Yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
yeah. I mean, and not only that, like, that's why I do think, extending that 18 hours is not only going to be beneficial for safety reasons, because the driver isn't going to feel, oh shit, I'm stressed. I got to run. I got to run. I got to run to make it to a parking spot. That way, they've still got time to go find parking. And that's another thing you and I have talked about is lack of parking, man. A lot of people scream, and it's like, oh, there's a truck driver shortage. Honestly, I mean, the big mega carrier has to deal with that too, with the revolving door But the lack of parking issue is honestly one of the more bigger issues because, back in the day, you used to be able to pull in any truck stop and not have to stress about finding parking. Now it's more like a shift thing now. And what I mean by that is it's either you got morning and day shift or you've got night shift and graveyard. Like that's when you're going to be able to find parking is in between those two half times of whether it's early morning or early evening.
Yeah,
Like about, go ahead.
you'll be able to find. Yeah, you can find spots the best between 3 and 5 p.m. And and in some places, like I mean, I know spots where it's like don't even bother if it's 5 o'clock. Don't bother
Yeah.
because of how full it gets and where you at. Or yeah, and I talked about this with Quincy in the last episode. Yeah, you've essentially have to drive nights and be having to shut down between like 6 and 8 a.m. or 6 and 9 a.m.
Yeah, because unfortunately, just the lack of parking that's out there. And another thing I like to mention too, and the thing that really irks me about Pilot, and I'm also looking at TA on this one too, is charging trucks for truck parking. A lot of us will go in, we'll buy a meal, we'll go shower, we'll go relax, and yet they're wanting to charge $27 a night for a space.
I'll
Yeah,
never
it's
understand it.
well, it's just another way for get money out of the driver. And like I said, and I've talked about, the quiet killer of the finances, man. And I mean, let's say if you're ending up going to high spot places like Atlanta, or you're out in Salt Lake City, Utah, and you have to pay for parking, them spots are almost double
Yeah,
because it's a big city. And,
that's the
and
worst part, where you need the parking the most, because that's the thing. The urban areas is where it's needed the most. Because I anywhere on 70 between fucking Columbus and St. Louis,
yeah,
it's easy to find parking, super
oh
easy.
yeah,
But yeah, in the urban area, in the more urban areas,
like
like even
Kansas City or like Denver.
yeah, where you need it, where the guys need to actually go, because that's the thing, because they're be ridden to this clock with the 14-hour clock. So it's not like they can just go far out because they only have an hour left, and they don't have time to go 65 miles out. So where they need the parking is where they make it more expensive. But the thing is, it's like if you like, and people will be like, well, there's a high demand, so why wouldn't they charge for it? But there's also a high demand for those trucks to be there. So if you were going to consume, if you want all these trucks to come to your city, you shouldn't be forcing them to pay more money for what you're demanding them to be there in the first place.
I could argue the same crap about the East Coast when it comes to tolls. If you really want freight, you might want to stop charging drivers $150 just to enter your state.
Yeah,
Last time
what?
I checked, that was criminal.
Yeah, the
I really
truck
think it
isn't.
was, but
Yeah, the truck's not on the road. Like a tractor trailer's not crossing, and I get it. It's because of wear and tear or whatever the fuck
mhm,
excuse they want to give. But a tractor trailer crossing a bridge, it's not doing it for pleasure. Like it's not crossing. It's not going to into Rhode Island, or it's not going into New York or on Long Island for pleasure. It's going there because there's somebody, the community has demanded whatever the trucks are hauling to that
yeah.
area, whether it be food or equipment, whatever it is. It's not, yeah, these trucks aren't on the road for fun. They want trucks out there. There's a trucks out there because they're bringing stuff that people want slash need.
And I'm gonna go off on a little joke here for a second, but any driver that's listening, would you really do this job for free? Come on, let's be real with ourselves here. Like
Yeah,
we're all out here to make a paycheck, and be paid for good for our experiences and stuff like that. If you aren't getting paid, like my experience with Victor, I fuck off. That was just me. But at that time, like we all do this for money. Some of us have kids at home. Thankfully, I don't have any kids yet. But I'm just that 23-year-old who's stashing money under the mattress, figuratively, and I'm saving up to buy my house, and I might eventually. I've considered, after that, after I get my house situated, getting a truck and maybe doing my own regional thing. But I mean, that's just something I'm not, ready to make a decision for myself. And it's going to take me a few years before I figure that out. And that's the thing in any new driver listening. You ain't going to figure this crap out in a year. You ain't going to figure it out in 2 years. It might take you about 5 years just to figure out to call yourself somewhat of a driver. But it's not going to happen overnight. We
no, yeah,
drive forward in miles and back in feet. That's why I'm so privy that the most common accidents are backing accidents. About 80% of them.
yeah. I like that. I like I like that line. Yeah, we're driving. We move forward in miles, but only backing up in feet, and that's kind of how you have to view your time in this industry. You have to keep, you have to focus, you know, focusing on going forward is an important thing because a lot of people this industry people are very quick to rush to failure when it comes to getting their own truck or wherever they want to go. They want to rush to failure, and it's like there's a reason. And you're right. There's a reason we back up in feet and why we don't back up for miles. And it has to do with rushing to. Backing up is what takes the most time, what takes the most like focus, but it's also where the most accidents happen are within backing because guys are rushing to failure in those instances. You can easily drive forward and it's good and it's easy, but once you go backwards, people are rushing to failure shortest distance. That's good.
Oh, and not only that, man, like, just when you mean rushing to failure as an owner operator standpoint. Now, I'm just going to talk as a license as a whole. You get these guys that are just in a batshit out of hell, getting ready in a rush, and then they wonder why they back into a parked truck. They're feeling rushed, they're feeling stressed, and this can be a stressful occupation sometimes.
Yeah.
The time when you hurry and is when you fuck up and get something hurt or somebody hurt or even yourself hurt. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast, fast is efficient.
Yeah.
So when you're taking your time, when you're being slow and it's being efficient, you got nothing to worry about. Just remember, and I can't stress this a lot to the younger drivers out there, just take your time. Don't kill somebody or yourself over this freight, especially doing flatbed.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. The freight's not going anywhere. Yeah, you got nothing but time. But hey, man,
Oh yeah.
speaking of time, yeah, we've been ripping for an hour and 20 minutes at this point. I gotta rack out. I gotta get back on the grind tomorrow. But before we sign off, yeah, let the people know where they can find you. If you're on social media, pimp the podcast again. Yeah, where are you available to be followed?
I'm actually working on creating a TikTok and stuff like that. I'll get back with you on that, and hopefully we can do another episode sometime. But right now, I'm on Spotify. It's called Skippy's Trucking Show. It has a bright orange logo. That's where I'm at. I do podcasts. I plan on publishing out a couple more and going more in depth with the Victor stuff. And I plan on talking about and having guests on that worked with CR England and the mega carrier menace, as I like to joke. But at the end of the day, um, I'm gonna be on Spotify. Um, and yeah, I'll be pumping stuff out. If you want to give me a listen, feel free to.
Awesome. Are you on Instagram?
I don't have an Instagram yet, but I'm working on that one too. I will
Okay.
get all that stuff together. It takes time.
Perfect, perfect. No, well, thanks again for coming on the show, man. This was really good because, like I mentioned at the beginning of the year, I want to talk to. I'm trying to talk to as many drivers as possible to keep the conversation going about training, about the truck parking issue, but also I want to talk to new drivers as well because a lot of this industry is new guys, and I wouldn't be. And you and I have essentially kind of started around the same time, and neither of us are where we are but by ourselves. It all came from information from others, helping others, and I'm trying to keep that conversation going. So you coming on and sharing this information is valuable. I know for a fact there's going to at least be one person who's going to hear your story and they're going to know, okay, that's another thing about CR England that I'm glad I didn't go to because or oh my God, I guarantee there could be somebody listening right now who's gotten a DM from some Eastern European dude and they're probably like, "Holy shit, I don't want to deal with this." So I'm glad to have you come on and share your experiences.
I'm glad for you to have me on. I'm gonna say one more thing before
Yeah,
we end
let it
this
rip.
podcast. Do not think that they can hold all these companies can hold you over the barrel like a shotgun with Old Yeller. And what I mean by that is they cannot do anything to your CDL. They cannot do anything to you, but the only thing they can do is put a loan on your credit. Because if you're feeling stressed and you want to quit, you can still get a job. It's going to be a little bit more difficult, but you can still get a job. Do not feel like these mega carrier companies are going to trap you.
Yeah,
They
no,
can't.
you're
They can't
absolutely.
take away your license. They can't do anything.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Definitely do not as a truck driver they don't. Here's what these companies want. They want guys to not take pride in who they are and what they are. They're counting on you to think of them. And that's advice to give to any driver. Your driver manager, even though the manager's in the word, or they're like nobody at that company who's dispatching or anything, they're not your boss or anything like that. Yeah, they're monitoring your time. And hey, if you're slacking, then that's on you. But at the end of the day, with how they talk to you or how they treat you, they're not your fucking boss. They're nothing without the driver. So yeah, Shannon is absolutely right when he says it. Don't let these mega carriers, or don't let any company act as though that they, like, you owe them shit, because you don't. Because
You don't.
you're making them money. Well said, well put, man.
Yeah, and that's just the one thing. If anybody takes anything away from this podcast right now, and it's that last part, do not let a company hold you over the barrel. You are worth more than that as a driver, whoever's listening to this podcast, because I know because you're listening to this show. You, I mean, just you have value. So, and I'm gonna continue posting this stuff on my podcast too. And one of these days I will have to get you on mine for
Yeah,
a little tidbit.
we'll
I
do.
think it'll
Yeah,
be fun.
we'll do a little switcheroo. I'll definitely come on and talk. And yeah, I'm glad. That's a really great place to end it. Is, yeah, any of you drivers, anybody considering, just know your value, man, because you're worth it. Be you. And I want to just thank everyone once again for listening. Shannon, want to thank you for coming on the show. You know where to find him. Check him out on Spotify, Skippy's Trucking Show. You know where to find me anywhere on social media at Lombard Trucking. And as always, my phone lines are open. If you guys ever want to talk, I'll be here.
God bless.
Later.